Now, our first guest today is Dr. Louise Grisoni, who's a fellow at the Centre for Diversity, Policy Research and Practice at Oxford Brookes University Business School. Now, I know that Louise has developed and implemented faculty strategy for research, knowledge and exchange with significant improvements in results, we're told. But I know that Louise uses creative methods with her work, and that's work on work-life balance, and has some very interesting ideas on flexible working. So enough from me for now. Let's hand over to Louise and hear what she has to say about this all-important subject. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, and it's really nice to see everybody here, and welcome to all those people online as well. Just want to say a little bit about myself, because in preparing for this session, and I'm down to talk to you for about 20 minutes, it made me pause to think about my involvement in flexible working. And you'll be forgiven for thinking that's a photograph of me in my younger days. I wanted to find something that might just epitomise a little bit of what it feels like. My career, I've worked part-time after having children. I've worked in academia for over 30 years, which is probably the epitome of flexible working. You can work from home, you can work from wherever, you have to come in to do teaching, but you also have to do evening slots, and there's weekend working and a whole range of other things. So I'm very aware of the kind of benefits and pressures that flexible working potentially brings. And I wouldn't be an academic if I didn't present both sides of an argument to you today to think about. So I've had a long career in academia at senior levels. And then just over 18 months ago, I took early retirement. And I took early retirement to care for my husband and my elderly mother. And that's the other end of the caring profile that everybody needs to be thinking about, because life happens and needs change, and you also have to make decisions about how that might affect career. Having retired early, I now have a part-time contract, which is a fixed-term contract, working back at Brookes as a senior research fellow. And as Wes kindly said, my research interest is in work-life balance, and I'm particularly interested in the emotional aspects of working lives. So that's where I come in. But for today, for the next 20 minutes, I've been asked to set the scene and present some facts and figures, and really just set a context of what some of the more recent reports are saying about flexible working, and potentially identify some talking points that might resonate with you, or you might want to talk about a little bit more later on. I think it's already been alluded to, but the world of work is changing dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years. And if you look at any of the 6 dimensions that we would use to analyse what's going on in work, all of them show increased uncertainty, rapidity of change, the idea that stability is no longer constant. And in a way, what we try and do in our working lives is try and re-establish some certainty and some stability. And I think it's in that context that we see ideas around flexible working coming to the fore. So in terms of the political environment, both globally and in the UK, I won't be able to get very far without talking about Brexit. That the impact that is having on working lives needs to be taken into account. In terms of the economic climate, we are still coming out of a recession, and Brexit will have an impact on that as well, that we're uncertain about. We don't know exactly how it'll impact and where it'll impact. In terms of the social dimension, we have an aging population, we have increases in temporary contracts, we have increases in part-time work. The demands of people working in the workforce are changing as well, so we need to factor those things in as well. Technology has already been mentioned, and I think is one of the huge drivers around flexible working. And as technology increases and methods and opportunities improve there, that will impact on how we work and how we think about work. There's the legal dimension and legislation around removing the pension age, that certainly will have an impact, and other legislation that our legal representatives will talk more about. And then in the environment as well. So demands for reducing waste. I saw a big sign as I came in, Unilever, Unipart, proud to announce 80% reduction in waste. But we have debates like what we do with our plastics that go on. And whilst it doesn't seem directly related, actually does also impact on those who are working, businesses who are employing people, and how we think about the working environment. So that's some of the big context issues. In terms of flexible working itself, I'll just highlight to you where I've drawn my data from. I went back to the CIPD Employee Outlook report in 2016. It has a focus on UK employee views on working life. CIPD used YouGov for its surveys and surveyed around 2,000 to 3,000 employees for this particular piece of work. And they were focusing on, they put together issues about commuting and flexible working. So I think that's interesting and particularly relevant for people who commute to London, in and around London. That's a big issue for those people. The second report that I've drawn on was interesting. It's by a company called Regis. It's a report written in 2017. I chose this one because it gives an international picture of flexible and remote working. It also captures employers rather than employee views, and it highlights the impact of technology. And the third, if we have a chance to get there, is the CIPD report on working lives and the introduction of the Job Quality Index, and that's the 2018 report that's just come out. So, moving on. Key findings then from the CIPD report. I apologise for this. I broke my glasses, so I actually lost the other arm now, and I'm a bit visually challenged, so I can't quite see that. I just about see this, but I might. These have gone to pot already, so never mind. But in terms of the CIPD report, key findings: main causes of stress amongst working people. Money worries, that's 22%. The nature of the job, which is around uncertainty about the job, 22%. Family and relationships, 20%. After that comes commuting at 19%, especially working in and around London, and a career failing to meet expectations, 19%. The report says that in terms of job satisfaction, and that has to do with career and progression, men tend to be less satisfied than women. So that's men are 54% less satisfied compared with 59% of women. However, flexible workers overall are more satisfied. So those working flexibly are more likely to be satisfied. That's 60% compared to 53%. So we see flexible working as a positive solution to some of the issues around job satisfaction. In terms of pressures at work, working flexibly seems to indicate that flexible workers are less pressurized. That's 29% compared with 42% who don't work flexibly. In terms of work-life balance, people based in and around London are least satisfied, and flexible workers are more satisfied with their work-life balance. Those who use flexible work, the most use flexible working options, and this is important in terms of how we think about flexible working. We tend to muddle up definitions or use them as synonymous with. So part-time working, 62%, that's the majority. So when we talk about flexible working, are we really talking about part-time working? Flexi time is 34%, and working from home is 24%. So to work from home, you don't need to be part-time. And that's the kind of important difference that you need to think about when people are talking about flexible working. What definition are they using, and what's included in that? Interestingly, way down the list are compressed hours, career breaks, mobile working, all identified as being used much less often, term time working, job share and annual hours work are hardly ever used. And I've never come across annual hours work as an idea. So, you know, it's interesting that those last options hardly ever used. The majority of the time when we talk about flexible working, the CIPD report that it's about part-time working, flexi time and working from home. In terms of the Regis report, they said that globally, 54%, over half, report that they work more than 2.5 days a week at home. So about half the time working away from the office. This is driven by technology, a desire to reduce commuting, and employers' needs relating to office space costs and increasing part-time work contracts. So they report increasing numbers of consultants as a trend amongst professional workers. Of the 36 who work exclusively from home, most also need to work from different locations. They're traveling around. They're traveling around for their work. Wes, you mentioned that yourself. So most popular locations for remote work, apart from the home office, include business centres and cafes. Just a note to say that Regis is a company that promotes business centres. So when you're reading data, you have to work out, you know, what's this data really telling? So, but that's interesting. Globally, China is the country that uses working away from the office most, 64%. And the UK is actually at the bottom of that list, 46%, with the global average in the middle there. In the UK, some of the issues are that whilst they use Skype, and that's interesting because I think that's a bit outdated, but they use Skype as a technology, there are IT problems. So there are connectivity problems and speed of broadband problems in the UK that's a problem for working from home. Business benefits. Flexible working can save or reduce office costs, avoiding fixed lease. Business are wanting to be more agile and market responsive as business seek to grow and expand, especially into new countries. Flexible working patterns, it's recognised that it can attract employees to work for a company, it can help retain existing staff, and it can reduce employee turnover. So the benefits to employees are recognised there. And then again, this issue about either working from home or from a designated base. There is a debate in these reports around whether working flexibly and working from home is more or less productive. Okay, there's a big kind of, some people say it's much more productive because you're saving commuting time. Other people will worry about what's going on while people aren't in the office. Are they actually being productive? Employee benefits, then, a list here that you will not be surprised by. The work-life balance issue I've mentioned already. The issue about working could improve productivity by cutting commute times. People can juggle other demands, either caring responsibilities or invest more time in friends and family or hobbies and other pursuits if they have more flexible working opportunities. It can improve health generally by reducing stress, and that may speak to the more human side of organisations. And people are more likely to stay with current employers. Among the pitfalls then, there might be some areas of work that actually aren't conducive to flexible working. The CIPD reported 27% here. Be interesting to find out whether any of your organisations you know of kind of fall into that category. There is some negativity still amongst senior managers, 15%, and amongst line managers and supervisors. So a sense that what happens to lines of control and performance issues for people who want to work flexibly. That's still present. I was also interested to see that the attitudes of co-workers weren't mentioned at all in the CIPD survey. And from personal experience and talking to others, that is an issue. I mean, I haven't got a percentage to attach to it, but my sense is there are some people who perhaps aren't working flexibly who feel they might be covering for those who are. Don't know. And that flexible working may be of limited relevance to some sectors. I'm thinking particularly where shift patterns are well-established part of those sectors, or places where you have to be present to do the job that you're required to do. From Regis' perspective, and remembering they're trying to promote these business centres, this is where they put the risk of productivity. They find that people find it hard to concentrate when they're working at home. Okay. Then it may be that if you haven't got a dedicated office space, you are trying to juggle space in the house with family who need cups of coffee or whatever it is they need, or come in to ask questions or whatever. And the other point is actually having up-to-date equipment in the home. So I have an aside. My son's office said that they wanted people to work from home, more hot desking in the office. They wanted to save office space. Said that he could work at home for 2 days a week. He lives in London in a rather squalid, I was going to say, but you know, a shared flat where other people are working different hours. He doesn't have a separate space to sit and work. You know, it's difficult. He says he doesn't do work when he works from home, so he goes to the cafe. He's one of those people. Slow and unreliable internet connections is a problem, and general background noise and interruptions. The other point here is that being able to access sensitive company data and material might also be a problem for some people if they work from home. Last slide, or the second to last slide, penultimate slide. Just to bring in here that the CIPD have now got their job quality index, where they are measuring the quality of a job along these 7 dimensions. Work-life balance, health and well-being, social support and cohesion, job design and the nature of work, terms of employment, pay and benefits, voice and representation. And they are assessing jobs along each of those dimensions. And I would argue that flexible working actually feeds into this too. So it's very interesting to see whether the job quality index, how flexible working might impact on that. So just to wrap up, some talking points. We don't need to answer these today. They may go on throughout the day, or maybe questions you take home with you. Does flexible working increase or reduce productivity? A quote here: the most common problems employers have with requests to work from home concern trust. This is best achieved by good communication and effective monitoring, task completion rather than time management. So that's a very interesting approach that actually is quite helpful in thinking about what needs to be achieved when people are working away from the office. What differences in attitudes towards flexible working exist between sectors and job types? Does flexible working promote the equality agenda? We could say yes. If we were to say no, it would be around the areas of part-time working where we know the majority of women are part-time workers, and part-time workers tend to be lower paid. So there may be some inequality if we're promoting part-time working that we're actually building into a system, and we need to be aware of and conscious of. Another quote: employees must be able to request changes to their working patterns without fear of dismissal, detriment, or disadvantage to their career opportunities. So if you do career breaks, if you go part-time from full-time, if you want to change your pattern of work, so go from full-time to part-time, back to full-time, to career break, to compressed hours, you know, is that going to be seen as the new portfolio type of working that we have, or is it going to actually impact on career progression? Behind all of this is, you know, is the norm of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, still being used, or have we yet got rid of that for this new idea of we can be flexible around how we work and where we work. And how does flexible working contribute to the Job Quality Index? Thank you very much for listening.